So I think there's a very big disconnect between people who talk about the game and people in the game when it comes to Jalen Hurts. Because
Agreed.
I don't think there's a lack of respect for Jalen Hurts around this league at all.
We'll take a couple super chats on this topic as well. So appreciate all of you guys. I also want to talk about Nakobe Dean today. We're going to talk a little bit about Quinyon Mitchell, who got his first, his first weekly award, got NFC Defensive Player of the Week for Quinyon Mitchell. So good award for him. And we'll continue to kind of kick around the Eagles topics here today. Let's go to our super chats today. Sasha says, what I didn't hear much about this week is that Steen and Lane out of the lineup in the second half, with the banged up Landon and Juergens contributing to the bad offense. Well, that certainly contributed.
Well, yeah, I mean, again, though, I think there's a level of spoiledness to that because the offensive line play throughout the league is at catastrophic level. And, injuries throughout the league are also accumulating, which is, similar. So other teams are dealing with it far more than the Eagles are. Now, last year they had one of the best offensive lines in NFL history. I truly believe that. This year they don't, but they still have one of the best offensive lines in the NFL. So, you have to persevere with what you do have, and the tackles are still playing at a very high level. Now Lane has not been able to finish a couple games, so you have to keep an eye on that. The interior, Cam struggled against Vita Bea, but that I think if he's 100% healthy, he's probably going to struggle against Vita Bea, to be perfectly honest.
Yeah, right.
Landon is the guy that's clearly had a decline that I think is related to his injuries, not because the guy's been, if not the best guard, certainly in the conversation. He's not playing like that early. And then Tyler Steen is a first-time starter, and I think he's been better than I expected. So, does he have to get better? Yeah, of course. But I expected more troubles than I've seen, to be honest. So I think he's actually a little bit better than I expected.
Where do you think the biggest issue right now in the O-line is? Is it Landon?
Yeah, I think it's Landon from the perspective of how good he was versus how he's playing right now.
Right.
Which is a dramatic difference that I think is totally related to injuries.
Do you think at 4-0, John, there's any merit to the thought process of maybe resting Landon for a couple of weeks? I know we talked about that early, and you're like, you can't do that. You got to make it to January. I understand that perspective, but you are 4-0. You've created a little bit of a buffer. I'm not saying to go out and lose a football game, but I don't know what's better. Like, ideally, I'd love to have Landon healthy. I know that's a perfect world and not as easy to do as it is that I'm saying, but do you think there's any thought process on that in the organization right now?
No, I think they're pretty consistent. I mean, it's the old hurt injured conversation. If he's injured, they'll sit him. If he's hurt, he'll play through it and they'll play him because he's their best option. So, even hurt, he's their best option. So, Vic Fangio busted out a Bud Grant quote the other day, and I love Bud Grant. Pat just recently passed away, but one of my favorite Bud Grant quotes was about Mick Tingelhoff, who was a Hall of Fame center who played an absurd amount of straight games. It was like 240 something. At the time, it was, I think, the second most in football to his teammate. But anyway, they were talking about the depth chart and said the depth chart was Tingelhoff and then Tingelhoff hurt, meaning he was the backup. Which I thought was phenomenal. And I think Bud said that. It might have been the off. I'll try to find out if I can. But I think it was Bud. Vic brought up Bud, so I was thinking about it. And that was one of the great quotes. And that's how I feel like the Eagles depth chart is. Landon Dickerson and then Dickerson hurt at left guard. I think the same thing. And that's sort of the NFL. That's what the NFL is. If you got a really good player, and they're tough and they're physical and they play through stuff, you play them.
Yeah.
They're not injured. If they're injured, then they're injured. If you tear your triceps, you can't play. If you tear your ACL, you can't play. That's injuries where you literally can't play.
Right. Makes sense. Rich, not John. I'm going to bring this comment up. Not a super chat, Rich, but we do appreciate the comment because this is, I think, what John was alluding to with the innovation comment, which is an interesting way to look at it. He says, innovation equals solving a problem differently than it has been solved before. The fact that no one plays like they do is a sign that they innovate by definition.
That's exactly what I'm saying. Like, people don't understand, not everyone, some people do, as Rich points out. Some people don't understand what the definition of innovation, and they just relate to, well, that's new, so that's innovative. Well, there's a lot of shitty new ideas that are not innovative.
It's so funny though, because it's like, boy, we talk about the complexities of football, the complexities, the offenses and motion and schemes and formations and all these different things, and it's like, yeah, we're going to run inside zone into an 8-man box. If it works, great. If it doesn't, we'll punt it. No matter how many 3-and-outs we have, as long as we don't turn it over, we're going to win. And they've proven they're right. It's like they've simplified this game down so much, and it's working.
But to the point of the definition, innovation is always new, but everything new is not innovative. That's what people have to understand. Right. The new part of this is that nobody has taken it to the level that they have. So when you think about it, and that's their belief that nobody, as I said, and I've asked multiple people in the organization about that. And they are, because I've been in a lot of Eagles practices with other coaches, and I've been a lot of NFL practices outside this organization. And I've never, even in two-a-days, because I'm old, I have never seen a team spend as much time on ball security than the Philadelphia Eagles, or taking it away, both of them combined. I have never seen it before. And I've been in a lot of NFL practices.
Yeah.
And not even close, to be honest.
Well, it's working for them. Well, we got a bunch more super chats. Appreciate you guys for being here this morning. Good conversation here today. Jason A-Team says, J-Mac, thoughts on WrestleMania 43 in Saudi Arabia? Ooh, quick, different change of pace here.
Well, if you'll note, I mean, the Saudis have more money than God.
Yeah, they do.
They're getting over 200 million, I'm told, for one event. So, I mean, it's a business. I got a lot of people, have moral issues, but if you look at, Saquon got the question because they're doing a big flag football game with Tom Brady. And they're getting Tom Brady to come out of retirement. That's how much money they're spending. Saquon's going to be involved. And you have this weird, ecosystem of people. And again, it's social media who have these moral, and they sit back and judge, well, you can't do this, you can't do that. And by all means, Saudi Arabia's history with human rights is what it is. But look, when you're talking about a business, and a business pays you, their job is to make money for their stockholders, and nobody's turning down that deal. That's a government issue. So if the United States has a list of countries that companies are allowed to do business with, and they are not allowed, they have a list that you're not allowed to do business with. If you're on that list where you can do business, companies are going to do business.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, welcome to the business world.
But there's this weird tribal. It's sort of like NFL fans. Like, Eagles fans hate Cowboys fans. Packers fans hate Bears fans. Raiders fans hate Broncos fans. Yada yada yada. In every division, you have these rivalries. It's very tribalistic between this weirdo group of WWE fans and AEW. But the funny thing is, like, WWE is like the Yankees or the Lakers or the Cowboys, and AEW is like the UFL team. But you have this weird small contingent of people, and then they'll go up. Well, they wouldn't take that deal. They would take that deal in a millisecond.
Yeah.
In a millisecond, it's never going to be offered. So they feel emboldened to say, well, human rights, my favorite team wouldn't take that money. Whereas for your favorite team, you'd be making more money in one day than their entire TV rights deal gives them for a year. You don't think they're going to take that deal? And I know Tony Khan, and he's a good businessman. He's not a dummy. He's taking that deal. So anyway.
Sasha R checks in. What's up, Sasha? For anyone who calls AJ a diva and a complainer, find me a receiver whose entire career was with run-heavy schemes and still a professional. Titans and Birds. You're right. There's no doubt, man. And he's as talented as he is, too. It does not surprise me at all that AJ Brown sometimes gets frustrated. It doesn't surprise me in the slightest. The dude is one of the best receivers I've ever seen, especially in Eagles green. And he just, he takes it on the chin the way they play, man. He really does.
I've talked about that a lot with AJ over the years, and he admits, he always gives the sheepish smile. He admits he was like a younger me had more difficulty. Like this is him having less difficulty. Like he's used to it because of Derrick Henry and now Saquon. And yeah, he handles it better than most. Could you imagine if some of these other receivers played in this? And Devontae deserves credit for this.
Oh my gosh, Devontae deserves credit too.
Can you imagine horrible what happened to Tyreek Hill? But and I hope he's okay and can come back. But can you imagine if Tyreek Hill played in this offense?
Imagine Jamar Chase. I mean, he was blowing up at their coach on the sideline the other night, and he's got Jake Browning throwing him the football.
I mean, Stephon Diggs. I mean,
they would go nuts. All of them. They would not be able to handle it.
Yeah. I mean, yeah.
And here AJ is with the 31st ranked offense, just trying to make it a little bit better, and everybody wants to hate on him for it. I get it. We're 4-0.
I think he's got a lot of supporters too.
I do too, especially inside the room, but we'll see. Kimberly checks in. What's up, Kimberly? She says they're brainwashing Hurts out of his God-given talent. AJ is the most complete receiver.
Well, you better start with his own dad, to be honest.
I am more upset with Jalen Carter's immaturity and behavior. Well, that's a separate point. I guess you're a Georgia fan, Kimberly, so you're upset with Jalen Carter. But what do you mean about Jalen's dad? You just think he's given Jalen the same type of...
Yes. I think he has been. That's why I said it reverts back to the Eagle. It reverts back to the Eagle. Nick Saban, his father. He has been, except for Lincoln Riley, who's more of a high flying guy, and that, but no, it's no use comparing college to pros. But obviously, just from an individual, he was runner up for the Heisman. For those who don't know, when he transferred to Oklahoma, he's throwing the football all over the place. In his final college season, other than Lincoln Riley, he has always had this sort of stringent voice in his life that says, "Don't turn the ball over. Don't turn the ball over. Don't turn the ball over." And then it kind of bit him in the ass at Alabama when they said, "Oh, we're not as explosive, so we're going to go with the guy who's explosive.
We need to go win a game."
So I think it's been going on for a long time. And then the Eagles obviously have doubled down on it when they tried to, loosen the leash early last season. And they thought they were turning the football over too much. And then it got tightened back up. But it starts way before that, I think. Where he's always had this, because that's how his father approaches playing the position as well. And, they're all probably right.
Yeah. The thing I hate about it is I've seen Jalen just throw the ball sometimes so well, like the 2 Super Bowls. I mean, the 22 season, I know you called it run first, but at the end of the day, he still threw the ball really well that year. So that's why I don't like this approach that the only way to do this is how they did it last year. I think there can be a hybrid or a different approach while still keeping your same philosophies at large.
Yeah, well, I think, and Nick has said he's got so many cliches, but one of the cliches is, if we need to run it 40 times, we'll run it 40 times. If we need to throw it 40 times, we'll throw it 40 times. They've won every conceivable way over this span since 2020. They've won every conceivable. So yes, they won. They won throwing the football. They won running the football. They won because of the defensive touchdowns, special teams touchdowns.
Right.
They've won every
The
conceivable.
foundation remains the same, and the way it's done
Yes.
sometimes can tumbleweed.
That's the circumstance of the game, and that's what he's talking about. Sometimes you're going to have the circumstance of the game demand that you throw the football, and they've thrown it effectively at times. And sometimes it's not, and sometimes it gets ugly. But they've won every conceivable way. I don't think anybody says he can't throw the football. And I certainly know there's a difference between, the talking heads, like myself, but even more so nationally, and the people in the industry. Like, the people in the industry are in love with the guy. I mean, his mentality is his, I point you to these little segments where Spagnuolo talks about him. And it's like, basically, you do everything right, and he's still breaking your back with making a play on third down. You get so much of that from people in the, like, I think, and I'm out on an island because I haven't gotten anybody to agree with me. I think the way the Eagles opponents have approached beating them is stopping Jalen Hurts, not stopping Saquon Barkley, even though they have stopped Saquon Barkley. I think the approach has been pin him in the pocket with the blitz, don't let him escape. Now, a lot of people aren't effective with that.
Right.
Dallas
It's harder, easier said than done.
Easier said than done. But I think when it does work, you see it. And I think that's plan A, not plan B. I think that blitz has also affected the Eagles' running game because that's just the nature of aggressive, penetrating football. You see all these tackles for loss because they're penetrating so quickly. And Saquon's going to get hit in the backfield. So they're very cognizant on both. But my only point to that is the Eagles faced a shitload of heavy boxes last year when they ran for 2,504 yards. So the people who say, well, look at the heavy boxes, that hasn't changed. The other aspect has changed. So I think there's a very big disconnect between people who talk about the game and people in the game when it comes to Jalen Hurts. Because I don't think there's a lack of respect for Jalen Hurts around this league at all. I mean, at all.
You've consistently said that too. Sasha R checks in again. Sasha, thanks for the super chats today, brother. He says, isn't it safe to say we are 4-0 against 4 possible playoff teams this year? I think that's pretty safe to say. Cowboys, you could probably.
Yeah, I don't think the Cowboys are a playoff team, but yeah, everybody else is, or certainly potential. I mean, things can always go wrong. But yeah, I think they faced 3 of the top 10 defenses in the NFL through 4 games, which the NFL has a way of doing that. When you're struggling at something, oh, here's a good defense. Here's a good defense. Here's a good. And next up, Denver. They have 2 great edge rushers, great defensive front, maybe the best cornerback in football, even though he's not playing like it quite yet. Here's your next test. And they're good defensively. Now, I think Vic's going to put Bo Nix in a blender, but defensively, they're good.
Yeah. Simo Mob checks in and says, Jalen has gotten so much better at the line of scrimmage. He is smarter than what sports media lets on. Just need to be given competent answers for different looks.
Yeah, I
think
think, well,
fortunately, give
I
him credit
mean,
too, though. I mean, I
yeah,
guess they diminish him a little bit, I guess, because he doesn't throw the ball a lot.
well,
But
I don't think there's a lot of people that know what's going on at the line, to
yeah,
be perfectly
I
honest.
agree. I think you're 100% right.
Um, Nick actually gave a very good explanation of what I think is a big problem in the NFL. And that's getting up to the line of scrimmage quickly. Not just I think it's a problem throughout the league. And I've been talking about it for people that have been paying attention. Basically, these quarterbacks are getting to the line of scrimmage too late and they don't have time to get out of bad looks into good looks. There's this new mentality of take it up to 15 seconds is when the communication between the coaches and the quarterback ceases. And there's this mentality with the younger coaches, especially with younger quarterbacks, take it up to that 15 seconds. Um, Now, some do it differently. They keep it in the huddle, and that's worse. That's even worse. Some let them get to the line of scrimmage and talk to them through it, which it's the lesser of two evils because it's more of a college approach. Like if you watch college football, you'll see the quarterback. A lot of teams run tempo in college. A lot of teams,
Yeah.
you'll see the quarterback go up to the line and look at the defense, and then step away and look at the sideline for the coach to tell him what to do because
Right.
the coach is reading the defense from. And by the way, if you're going to do that, go up in the booth. But it's hard to do in college because you have to signal it in. But because you can't see these guys' egos are out of control. Offensive play callers. So in my opinion, you should be working tirelessly to make sure your quarterback can do it at the line of scrimmage and get him up there as quickly as humanly possible. And Jordan Mailata talked about it. That's why Nick got the question that they haven't had an urgency to get up to the line of scrimmage. Now, a lot of people say, well, Kevin Patullo's getting the play in early. So getting the play in too late. And Nick went through everything that goes into it. Remember, this is in 40 seconds or 25 seconds if it's a stop clock. This is in 40 seconds. So first, Kevin's got to say what the personnel is. What are they running? 11, 12, 13, 21, yada, yada, yada. Then the assistants have to get the right, they're the people responsible to getting the right people in are the position coaches. So they have to make sure the right personnel is on the field. Then you have to call the play to the quarterback, which is basically a two-way play, which is you're going to have a dominant, maybe it's inside zone versus a less dominant play, which is the passing play off of it. And that basically is the kill concept or the can concept. So he calls the play. Then Jalen has to give the play inside the huddle. And everyone obviously then has to line up exactly where they're supposed to do without any hesitation, as he said. So that takes more communication. And by that time, you have to be at the line of scrimmage, set, ready to go. And that's where Jalen Hurts has to look over, see what's going on. And then if it's a run play and all of a sudden you're running into a heavy box, you might want to kill it to the pass player or vice versa. And you have to communicate that out. All while that's happening, Cam Jurgens and Jalen Hurts also have to slide protection to the proper set if they expected something different. Because remember, as Tom Brady said, all you're doing as a play caller is basically calling betting odds, say, they run this 70% of the time on 3rd and 7. So we think they're in this. And then they come out with something else and you have to change it. All of that has to happen in 40 seconds. All of that has to happen in 40 seconds. So it ain't easy. But it has become a problem in the NFL. And I think the problem isn't with the quarterbacks. Well, it is, but the problem is they're not being trained right to handle things at the line of scrimmage. And the bigger problem is the ego of these play callers. And I'm not saying Kevin's in that list because there are far worse. who think they're better prepared. Like one thing I always hated about Chip Kelly, he did not want a quarterback like Tom Brady or Peyton Manning. And to me, if you're not striving to get that quarterback,
Right.
I don't want any part of you. Get out. If anybody out there in the super chats want to give me $13 billion and I could buy an NFL team,
YouTube takes half of them, John. So you're going to need like 22 billion.
All right, 20. So that Elon Musk, if you're out there and you want to give me $22 billion,
well, if you get it off super chat, then 13 should do it.
Yeah. So 13 or so. I would never hire a coach like that. I want somebody to train the quarterback so he can do things at the line of scrimmage. But that's just not the modern NFL.
I know, and it's hard too because they're starting at a different level coming out of college, as you just pointed out. You know, they're coming into the league used to looking over at the sideline and their coach is telling them what to do. It's a much different game, man. It really is. So, all right, good stuff, everybody. Appreciate it. Simo, good super chat. Okay. One more super chat. Charles Menifee says, have you seen any mental impacts from winning the Super Bowl? Good question.
No, not really. I saw that in 2018. You know, they put up a Super Bowl 52 sort of championship logo in the locker room back then. And, you know, I remember at some point Malcolm Jenkins, who was obviously the defensive leader, one of the biggest leaders on the team, said, take that shit down, because they were just not, you know, they started with the whole new normal stuff and we're the new Patriots and yada, yada, yada. And they were kind of feeling themselves and they just weren't playing well. And, you know, at some point he said, take that shit down. They did. I don't get that with this group. You know, if anything, I think, again, we'll go back to AJ. AJ's explanation of winning the Super Bowl, very similar to Jalen's, by the way. It's like, all right, what's next, basically? You know, they didn't feel the way they thought they'd feel, which is, I think, pretty common with high-level athletes, actually, because I think for them it's more about the day-to-day process of it, the challenge of it. Like I think, and AJ said it, so like when he was explaining his thought process after the Super Bowl, he was like, I didn't feel the way, and I'm paraphrasing, I didn't feel the way that others thought, you know, that I was taught to feel. I didn't feel that way, you know. And he said, I get more out of dominating the guy against me. I get more out of, you know, imposing my will on, and I think that's part of his frustration because he wants to impose his will and dominate the guy opposite of him. He gets more out of that. And some people took that the wrong way and called him selfish or whatever. But yeah, I
saying what Jalen Hurts says, the process is more important than the result. You do each thing each day and the result comes, you know?
Well, because they know it ultimately, again, it doesn't matter except for Bill Russell and Yogi Berra. Those are the only two I can think of in major sports. You're going to lose more. You're going to lose your last game more than you're going to win your last game. Okay. So if you're super obsessed with this is worthless unless I'm standing at the end, you're never going to become a great player. Because the odds are stacked against you, to say the least. So even for people talking about Tom or Michael Jordan, they lost their last game a hell of a lot more than they won it.
Right.
And people go the literal fashion. Well, sometimes you you win your last regular season game, but you're not in the playoffs. Yeah, I'm not talking about that for those assholes.
Yeah.
I
know what
you get the point. Everybody gets the point. But yeah, anyway, so this
is a good combo. You know, we had a good combo at the start of the show here today, John. The thing that I guess this is just kind of the business minded. You know, I always love that. I've always been interested in that stuff. The business mind in me has to wonder. That's why I brought up Jeffrey Lurie earlier, because I'm like, everything you said makes a lot of sense. All right. Doesn't mean I agree with it all, but everything you said makes a lot of sense from the Eagles' approach standpoint. At what point do they just think, all right, well, why are we paying this money to all these guys if this is how we want to play ball? You know?
Well,
Does
that's
that
where you
come
have to
into
give
it, or is it just like, hey, they
that's
all go into it? You know, they all go into the winning and they pay for wins. Like you said that one time, they don't just pay for individual production or however you
well,
want
that's
to work.
Billy Bean. I stole that from Billy.
That's
We're
right.
not buying players, we're buying wins.
Right. And if you look at it that way, then shit, they don't care how much the offense costs. But I don't know. You got to think that
No, I do believe they have that philosophy. They think they're buying
yeah, but there still is a
wins.
very real element for like how we come in, where it's like, okay, we have a certain amount of money we can spend. You know, there's certain players that we have to keep, and then there's some players that we have to let go. Like, how do you gauge who to keep, who to let go, who to pay, who not to pay? They obviously
Well,
let
yeah, that's where.
you know.
So where I think it's changed. Where I think it's changed is not that sentiment. I think it's been prevalent for a long time at Philadelphia, which is buying wins, not buying players. But I don't think that's changed. What I think has changed is like Jeffrey legitimately thought that the way to win consistently in this league was with a high efficiency passing offense. That was his belief for many years. It might still be his belief.
Now we've
but
innovated down to nothing. But it's working. You're
so
right.
that part is what has changed, or at least it's changed in the short term for him. I don't know if it's changed in the long term. I'd like to have that discussion with him. But he's definitely more open, obviously, and that directly is related to success, nothing else.
Right.
I mean, if they were losing, this would, the coach would be fired, everybody would be fired, but they're not. So that part of it's changed, but I think that mentality's always been there. You're buying wins, not players. Now, who gets paid, who doesn't get paid, and Howie's talked about this extensively on the record, the circumstance. So people say, well, the defense, well, they're all young. They're all in their rookie contracts. That everybody's entrenched offensively. They're the guys getting paid. That's just the timing of football, the business of football. And that will begin to change as you have to pay Jalen Carter and potentially Nolan Smith. Who knows where that is now? Quinyon Mitchell, Defensive Player of the Week. He's getting better and better. Cooper DeJean is the best tackling cornerback I've seen since Antoine Winfield. Those guys are all going to get paid eventually, and that circumstance will affect the offense. And guys will age out. Lane might retire after this year. He's talked about it a lot now. Dallas Goedert is probably not going to be here. Those are two guys right off the bat. Some of it takes care of itself. And, that is more to do with circumstance.
Yeah, no doubt. Johnny Mac, real quick, we have Chris Franklin coming up here on Birds 365. Looking forward to talking to Chris Franklin. Nakobe Dean, John, opened up his practice window yesterday. I hate to say this, but it really looks bleak for Nakobe in terms of getting back on the field. I don't know. I don't see it, but maybe they move some things. Maybe I'm not seeing what they're gonna do. But Nakobe's practice window activated, John. Your first couple thoughts, and then when he returns, just maybe what this thing looks like.
Yeah, it's funny. Nakobe was more short than I've ever seen him before. I'm not talking about his height either. I'm talking about him speaking. He's usually I've talked to him numerous times while he was hurt. He's usually very, but now he's getting hyper focused on getting back, and people are asking him, is he ready? And he's like, my practice, I'm ready. I'm ready to go. And yeah, to your point, I just don't see a spot right now. So I think he's going to be backup, and I think he's going to be a special teams player to start. Now, injuries happen pretty quickly, and somebody might get hurt, and that changes things dramatically. But the way Jihad Campbell is playing, it's very hard to take him off the field. I will say, and you heard it when Vic was talking this week, he loves the guy. I don't think people know how well he played last season.
He played well, and he's seemingly an amazing leader.
Oh, he
Amazing
is.
locker room guy, an amazing leader, got great.
The Eagles put out an unscripted thing with their linebackers, whatever they call their show. And you saw Nakobe, his leadership when he's not even playing. I mean, he's still the leader of that group. Like I said, if he was healthy, the two players, and Reed became a captain, the two players that were going to be captains, and Nakobe would have been if he was healthy, were Nakobe and Reed. Yeah, I mean, he's a natural leader. But yeah, I mean, right now, I mean, the guy's playing Jihad. I'm talking about is just playing at a level where you can't take him off the field. I always say the luxury of playing time. That's what the luxury of playing time is.
Yep.
If you're playing well, nobody's taking you off the field. But, you know, the minute you start making some mistakes, then, you know, you see it with quarterbacks. I said, you know, it's going to be interesting.
Breathing down your neck. Exactly.
Yeah. Now, in the case of Jihad, though, he's a first-round pick, so he's going to have the longer rope. So, right now, it doesn't look like there's an opportunity. Vic's been asked the question. The only person that's been asked, I'm convinced, that's been asked that more than Vic is me, and that's, well, can you put Campbell at edge rusher? No, he's not ready. And Vic has said it 5-6 times.
When you say not ready, or Vic says not ready, do you mean that there's like you just don't want to put too much on that young player? You got to let him get good at being off ball first, or do you think he doesn't have the skill? Like, what does that?
He hasn't done it for a long time. So right now, I think he's got the skill set to do it, but he hasn't done it for a long time.
It's just that he's a rookie player, and you got him playing off ball linebacker. You can't swamp the guy.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And he's got, like, if they're gonna turn him into an edge rusher, they got to go full bore, and that means shift positions and. You know, he's got to learn the technique of a pass rusher. He's not Micah Parsons, who's just going to show up and go, all right, I'll go get it. You know, he's not that. He's very talented. You know, that the second problem is he's been so good at off-ball linebacker. You know, the mentality seems to be like, Vic, well, why? I'm not going to move him. He's doing similar to Cooper. It's like, well, you can talk about him at corner, you can talk about him at safety, but he's excelling at nickel. A similar thing here. It's like, well, if he's playing so well there, why do I want to move him? Seems to be his sentiment. Yeah, but he's been asked that question numerous times, and he said the same thing. Well, he does say, you know, he says not right now because he's not ready. He's not ready to handle that role. And he's ready to handle the role he's in. Obviously, he's already proven that. And then the issue about playing 3 linebackers at once. Again, I don't listen to me. Listen to Vic.
Yeah, right. I've used that 10 times. You know, and also, unfortunately for Nakobe, they drafted a literal beast type of play. Like Jihad, you can't compete with that size, athleticism, speed, everything that Jihad Campbell. It's like the perfect fit for a Vic Fangio defense. It's unfortunate for Nakobe, but
Vic loves Nakobe.
I know, but you just. You know, you can love Nakobe all you want. You're not taking Jihad Campbell off the field. There's just no way.
Yeah. By the way, I love it. One thing I love about, and it's happened to me, so I'm not picking on people, but somebody asked Vic the other day, a couple weeks ago, you were talking about Jihad Campbell playing off ball alone by himself, which I guess would be dime. Letting Bond kind of be the edge rusher, actually. So he's talking about instead moving Bond to be the edge rusher, let Jihad play with Nakobe. It seems like that was something he was able to do this week. This was after the Tampa game. what have you made of Campbell's progression and the trust he's earned to be on all ball alone? And Vic's answer was, yeah, that hadn't happened. He complete, people are, he's like, yeah, that hadn't, it just didn't happen.
Right.
And he will not sugarcoat it. He will put you in your place and he will say, like, I made a classic Vic mistake. Like, do not call a slot cornerback a cornerback in Vic Fangio's world because he considers them different positions. So if you say, and I made the mistake because I was talking about Cooper's tackling, and I pretty much said it is one of the best tackling cornerbacks I've ever seen. And Vic immediately corrected me and he said, well, he's not playing corner because he considers that a different position. But that's the way he is. It's like, and you say he got asked that question. I always say he got asked that question earlier. He said he was asked the 3 linebacker question. Could in the modern game, could you play 3 linebackers on the field? And his answer was playing linebacker, and he chuckled.
I know that answer plays back in my head often.
You
think we're discounting the potential for him to get on the field in other packages? Like Dominique says, we're going to look stupid when Nakobe gets and plays on the field in multiple packages.
Well, first of all, I've been saying Vic loves Nakobe, so it wouldn't surprise me at all if he finds a package for Nakobe, short yardage, something like that, where he finds packages to get him on the field. And second of all, I'm never going to feel silly because I explain everything as contextually as possible. Yeah. What he said is, what he means by 3 linebackers on the field is if you're doing that, say Zach Bond's playing the edge, he's not playing linebacker.
Yeah, right.
That's what he's saying. The labeling, how many times, if you've heard the show, how many times have I said labeling is a problem in the NFL? Because he's got 3 linebackers on the field. No.
Is there a better chance for them to move Bond to the edge or Campbell to the edge?
Well, I think Bond is more effective at it.
Me too.
But I mean, why would you move Zach Bond full time to the edge? It makes no sense.